All right, welcome back to the Performotion YouTube channel. It's David. I'm just going to talk a little bit about programming. Doing a little bit of a series here. I'm going to do this with a couple of my sort of clients or athletes, whatever you prefer to call them. And we're basically just going to go through their program and do a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of an analysis. I'm not actually going to show you the program because that would be kind of silly. I'm not going to show you a program meant for someone else for you to copy if it has no relevance to you and yourself. If you're looking for a program to follow, head to the Performotion website. We've got plenty of programs there that you can purchase that are a little bit more tailored towards you, but we'll get into that a little bit sooner. So, program breakdown for one of my guys called Stephen Vo. Let's scroll across here to the relevant information. So, a little bit about him and his background. Stephen and I have been working together for about a year and a half, and he's been training for about 2.5 years in total. So, it hasn't been training super long, and we've been together for a decent amount of time already. So, he's an under 59 kg athlete. He currently trains 5 times a week. He's 25 years old, and he's 166 centimeters tall. So, he's pretty small dude, under 59 kilos, not super massive by any stretch of the imagination. What we're going to talk about today is basically where he started. So what I guess his program looked like when we first started together a year and a half ago, and what it looks like now, and I guess sort of the conclusions and things that we've learned along the way that might be helpful and useful towards your own training or you as a coach. So, Stephen and I, when we first met, we did a prep. I think it was probably about 3 or 4 months worth, and we did a first comp together. His numbers at that first comp were, as on the screen here, 115 squat, 112 bench. I believe he missed 117 bench on that day as well, and a 152.5 deadlift. So these were all personal bests on the day, which is awesome. And I think his starting numbers beforehand were about 100 kilos on squat, I think 105 or 107 on bench, and I think about 140, 145 on deadlift. So short little bit of time together, we improved a little bit. Currently, his best lifts are now 142.5 squat, 140 bench, and a 182.5 kilo deadlift. So lifts have gone up in the year and a half that we've been together, as you'd expect. But let's talk about where we started and how we got to where we are now. So, training. When we first started working together, Stephen was only training 4 days a week, so one less day than he does now, so not a huge difference. But the thing that is wildly different is, one, the frequency, and two, the volume. So when we first started together, Stephen was only squatting twice a week, he was benching 3 times, and he was only deadlifting once. Currently, present day, he's squatting 4 times, benching 5 times, and he's deadlifting twice. So things have almost doubled for all the above, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And if we look at the sets per week and the volume, it's again also pretty much doubled across the board. So in the past, 1.5 years ago, we were squatting 7 sets a week, bench pressing 17 sets. It's actually 11, but there was 6 sets of pressing with like shoulder pressing and things like that. And we're only deadlifting 4 sets a week. So fairly low volume on that. And currently we're now on some sky high volume, which seems to be working really well for him. And we're squatting 17 sets a week, benching 34 sets a week, and deadlifting 11 sets per week. So let's just flesh this out a little bit and talk about it. So the most interesting thing to note here is, while on paper this looks kind of ridiculous, where everything is almost completely doubled, the interesting thing, or the thing to keep in mind here, is that all of these things were making progress and are making progress. So back when we first started together, that sort of 2 squat, 3 bench, 1 deadlift program with the low volume that you would see on the screen here back in the day, was actually working for him at the time. So at the time, he was still getting stronger. As we saw, the first prep we did, his numbers went up. The second comp we did, numbers went up, and we were still running that same 4-day program with that 2-3-1 frequency. So at the time, that was working for him. And then things slowly started to taper off, so we had to try something new. So we tried more volume, we tried adding in more sets, we tried adding in more frequency, we changed to 5 days a week. And this has been a long process of moving from 4 days a week to 5 days a week, from 2 squat sessions to 4, from 3 bench sessions to 5, and from 1 deadlift session to 2. So it's been a long process. We didn't just get here overnight, and it was a gradual increase of meeting his needs, or meeting the demands of what his body wanted to adapt to. So we didn't get here overnight. It was a long journey. And everything worked along the way, which is the interesting thing. So if we look at what his program used to look like, it was something like this. So 4 days, it was just an upper lower. It was super, super simple. And one of the lower days just had a bit of bench on it. So just add in a little bit more frequency. So super, super basic, very, very relaxed. That's how we got that 2-3-1 frequency. Now it currently looks something like this, where we have the primary deadlift on the first day with a secondary bench and a tertiary squat. Secondary squat on the second day, primary bench. The quaternary squat, or the very, very low priority squat on the third day with a very low priority bench, just something easy in the middle of the week. And then we have primary squat with a quaternary bench and a secondary deadlift. So again, following it up here with the big SBD day on the fourth day, and then it's just primary bench on the Friday. So a little bit of an easier day again to get him ready and rested for the primary deadlifts that are about to come back up on the first day. So this is completely different to that first program we ran. Frequency is through the roof. It's a completely different program, but it's all working, which is, yeah, incredible. So let's just check back to this training split here. So if we think about Steven's training information back here, we do have to keep in mind that he is an under 59 kilo athlete. He's training 5 days. He's quite young, those sorts of things. The most important two things here would probably be his height and his weight. So 166 centimeters and under 59 kilos. So something to note with that is that with his size, he's going to be moving the bar quite a short range of motion, which means to get an appreciable amount of work in, we're going to have to do a lot of sets, a lot of volume to actually get his system to adapt and make the strength changes that we're looking for with our training. The other thing to talk about and touch on is his efficiency. So Steven is an incredible bench presser. He's benching 140 at under 59, which is nothing to scoff at. Very impressive bench press. And as you can imagine, he's got quite a small range of motion for such a small dude benching a lot. So to actually get some sort of good work in for Steven, we've had to put in a lot of bench. So as you can see, we're at 34 sets a week. It's a lot of bench pressing, lots of reps, just a lot of ways to try and get the volume in and make sure he's actually getting stronger and adapting to the stimulus that we're trying to, I guess, get from the training. So those are the other things that we need to talk about and think about with our programming, is not just who the person is and where they've started, but as they train and as the time goes on, they get better at performing the lifts. Their efficiency goes up. Maybe they switch from conventional to sumo. Range of motion decreases, things like that. So as you get more efficient, you need more work to accrue the same amount of fatigue and, facilitate the adaptions. Things to wrap up with. We're going to just head over to some conclusions and some more things to just sort of take away from a quick little overview and breakdown of the program. Is programs change and they adapt to the lifter. It's not the other way around. So if the lifter has different goals, the program will change, and the lifter's tolerance changes. So their volume demands might increase, especially in this case where efficiency increased. So therefore we had to increase his workload on top of that. Same with his ability to actually train, so that went up as well. So we did have the ability to stretch things out further across the week, so make recovery demands a little bit easier as well. And I guess the big things here is that no program is going to stay static for forever, basically. Things are going to change and adapt to the lifter, and that's always going to be the case. Life stresses exist, things outside the gym exist, and the program should always reflect that. Number two, the variables matter. So again, training age, size, gender, range of motion, the things I was touching on earlier, these things are super, super important and 100% need to be considered every time you are going to make any sort of programming justifications, whether it's volumes, intensities, things like that. So definitely check those out and consider these when you are programming. Number three, and I think this one's also really, really cool and something to just keep in mind, is that it takes time to find a truly individualized program. So it took us probably a year, I would say, to actually get to the program we're at now. where we found that every time we would increase something, it would just keep getting better. He would keep getting stronger, etc., etc. And we finally sort of, I wouldn't say stumbled, because it's all been very intentional and very sort of trial and error based, but we finally figured out what sort of split frequency, what he responds well to as an individual, what rep ranges, those sorts of things. And it's just taken time, lots and lots of trialing and error. Lots of communication backwards and forwards between him and myself, and just lots of competitions done together. So we've done a couple novice comps, and we've done a couple sanction comps. So it's just taken time. So don't rush the process. Trust things, trial things out, and I guess come in with an open mind and be ready to sort of see how things go objectively, and don't let your feelings get in the way too much about how you feel about a program. Number 4, again, touched on it already, just trial and error. So if you are programming for yourself, for someone else, try different things, think outside the box. On paper, it might sound strange to squat 4 times. Again, it might not sound strange if you're into powerlifting and you know much about lightweights, but for some, squatting 4 times a week might seem excessive. But to get Steven's squat to move, it was definitely necessary, and we've seen the best squat gains of his lifting career so far once we introduced the 4th day of squatting. So don't be afraid to think outside the box, try different things. There's so much you can do. You can get so creative with programming, and it'll, help you find what suits the individual in front of you as well. That's all we've got for today. If you have any recommendations for videos you want to see, if you want me to cover anything in more depth, feel free to let me know in the comments. Otherwise, head over to the Instagram for Performotion, or follow myself on David_Performotion on Instagram. Send me a DM if you have any questions or if you're interested in coaching. Otherwise, thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.